Hey guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about testing. Not any type of testing, code testing. So let's get into it. So this morning I was reading through my comments and there was a comment from a viewer on one of my old, which seems to be one of the more popular videos, which is basically where I walk you through code testing. Basically a front-end code test for a junior and a senior. And this person had written to me and said that on the senior code test video, and basically said, Fredrik, are you kidding me? This is a super trivial video and the test is super trivial. So all you're doing is to test what I know what the junior knows, plus that I understand theming. That's nothing. In my test, I had to implement an image library, an image gallery, where you should be able to click an image, show a modal, and then have a comment section where you need to make sure that you can add comments to and inject that to the HTML, and you should be able to not be able to do injections, and you should be able to do previous and next buttons and all that stuff. And I kind of just sat there, I read through this and I went, okay, let's see if I can tell this person in the nicest way possible and or rather relay in the nicest way possible my thoughts on this. So I wrote back and I said, well, that sounds like an absolutely excellent junior code test. That's a great junior code test. In fact, it is pretty much the exact same test that I got when I got my job at Ticketmaster. That's my first code. That was my first enterprise level job. I had been working for almost a year, I think, total work experience, almost. And that was my junior code test. Are you surprised? Because I'm not. Because that's the thing that people don't seem to understand when it comes to junior versus senior and that sort of that discussion. Because a person who does not understand the considerations that a senior has to make when they're working for a company does not understand why a very simple thing, or rather perceivable simple thing as implementing a theming strategy is a lot harder than what this person described. Because the mental mistake that this person has made is to think that just because you have to do a lot of stuff, that the stuff that you're doing is complicated. It is not complicated to create a modal in pure JavaScript for somebody who understands JavaScript and HTML and CSS. If you can't do that, this is why I've been telling you guys, if you must have a framework or jQuery or something like that to create a modal or a DOM element in essence on the page and style that, you can't do that in vanilla JavaScript, then I'm sorry, then you are going to face a pretty big challenge. This person was not allowed in this scenario, in this specific test. Neither that person or I were allowed to use any frameworks or anything like that, because the company wants to know that you know JavaScript, not that you know jQuery, not that you know specifically React, or maybe that's what they want, but some companies really want you to really know JavaScript, to understand the DOM, to understand how event listeners and all that stuff works. I'm sorry, but that's the way it works. So, creating a DOM element or a modal in this scenario that is going to be shown when you click an image. In other words, you need some basic HTML. You need to understand a network request, because I'm assuming that this person had to dynamically get, that's what I had to do. I had to integrate to Flickr in order to actually get all the images and show them on the page. That's a single network request to get all that data. Understanding APIs and API tokens. That took maybe a few hours to read through the documentation and just to get all that right, because I had never done anything with Flickr. Get that data and then basically just iterate through it and add DOM elements to the page. This is junior level stuff, guys. Anyone who knows anything about JavaScript and networks and stuff of that nature will be able to do this if you are supposed to be a professional. A professional level software. I mean, my juniors at work does a lot more complicated things than this every single day. And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. The idea that just because the test itself is simple is a little bit misguiding. it's the thing that I was telling this subscriber. I was saying that if you can implement a theming strategy that will scale and that has proven to the people at the company that you are the sort of person who actually understands what the challenges with theming is going to be long term for the company, that is going to prove that you have experience, because you can't fake that. No junior has, I've never worked with a junior or even most mid-level developers who could tell me how to actually do this in a sustainable way, because it's one of the hardest things that you can do for a company. You don't think so. The actual implementation, the actual code that you write is fairly simple, but that's not what you're after when you're interviewing a senior. You want to have somebody who knows what to write, the right code to write, not how much there is of it. That's what the juniors are going to have to face. A junior has to write a lot of code, usually, in my experience, to prove that they know their stuff, because we're trying to figure out if they just know the basic coding practices. And making a gallery, an image gallery like this, is basic everyday stuff. I do this on a daily basis. It's super trivial in comparison to something like a component library. In other words, putting up a component library that is sustainable over time, that caters to the design needs and has the type of foresight to understand that, all right, in order for these APIs, because when you create a standardized component library, you have to think about the possible use cases for the components that you are creating ahead of time. A junior cannot do this, because they haven't worked for long enough to understand all the things that usually happens when you work on a project over a long time. That's something that experience teaches you over time. And that's why it doesn't have to be a theming. In this scenario, I just did it with themes, because as I said, I know that most people will not understand how complicated it actually gets. It's the same sort of thing, as I said, with component libraries. You don't understand how much work goes into a component library. Look at Material UI, for example, or Material Design. It's just styling, right? Do you have any idea how much work has gone into creating that framework? Or Bootstrap? That's also a framework. These sorts of solutions are made by seniors, not by juniors. For a very good reason, because it's extremely tricky to get it right. So, what I want you to take away from this is that every company has a different threshold for what they consider to be a senior or a junior, or like for whatever. And the thing is that you can't think about being tested like something that necessarily means that you have to solve extremely complicated problems. A senior versus a junior has more to do with experience, work-life experience, and knowing things, as opposed to, you know, being able to solve things in a certain amount of time, or being faster, or anything like that. Because I'll give you an example. The juniors at my work, they come to me every single day. Every single day. I sit down with them every day. I help them every day. Not with this stuff that I just described. This is something they do in minutes. Well, not minutes, but this they do without any problems whatsoever, because it's everyday stuff for them. They need help with understanding things like Webpack, understanding build pipelines, understanding practices and how to think about certain things, or how to get certain results, or building certain components, because they don't really know how, like the designer wants something and they don't really know how to achieve that effect just yet. So they need somebody who has built those components a few times to teach them, like, you know, the tricks and the tricks and the tips and the tricks. That's what a senior does, guys. It's not about who writes the most amount of code. It's about who has worked for the longest and knows how to make good decisions. Have a great day.